Okay, we got Facebook 1, Facebook 2, Facebook 3. Let's see if YouTube is on as well. All right. Okay, we are live on the 5 platforms. We're going to play a quick intro and then get our brother in here and see what's been going on in his world. How's it going, everybody? We got our good friend, beloved brother, David Manning in the house, and just a couple of quick, let me just get everything set up. Hang on. Hang on a second. Okay. All right. Let's see. Very good. Still. There we go. All right. So we got 40 people on the Facebook pages, 2 on YouTube. We got a few in the Zoom room. We got David Manning on today, who we've really had a good time getting to know, man. He's got a hell of a story in regard to his own journey, self-healing himself from some pretty serious, from a human perspective, some pretty serious illnesses and attacks on his physical body. But he's a warrior and many other things. I'm going to get him on here and see what's been happening. We talked to David right before this big opportunity poked its head out in the earthly realm. So let's see what's happened since then. Let's get him up here, David. If you guys want to make comments that you want to have seen, then you'll have to go to my Facebook page or the Zoom room. I can't see the comments on YouTube or the Soulspeaks Facebook pages. Just a little FYI. All right, let's see here. Unmute and start video. There he is.
Okay, cool.
What's happening, David? It's good to see you.
Nice to be here. Nice to see you, Todd. Huh? It's life just gets crazier and crazier, doesn't it? It's a weird one. Yeah.
It is a little bit strange, but I mean, to me, it's the most exciting. It's the most exciting thing. I know I'm biased, but I think it's the most exciting thing this multiverse has ever created. You know,
it's when this was all kicking off, I had that deep feeling of excitement underpinning everything, and there was also fear and this sense of there was this amazing sense of grief for what the world was about to tip into. I had this deep understanding, not in my intellect, but at a deep physical level, that the world is about to tip over the precipice into some chasm, in a sense. Now that sounds dark, and it's not, but it like, you know, a lot of people are really shocked and traumatized by what's going on in the wider collective. And you know, my understanding is that we have been trained and born for these times. We chose to incarnate in these times.
Yeah.
And we knew at some level that this sort of event was likely, you know, that this was going to unfold in this way. And it's up to us, in effect, now to step into our ourself, our greater self, and just embody that, allow that to embody through us, so that we hold a set of frequencies that really provide opportunities for those that are still searching, are still unsure. And there are a lot of those people now that are really starting to wake up, to come to their senses, in a sense, as the fabric of reality shifts and groans and creaks and tears apart. A lot of people are seeing through the cracks and thinking, fuck, this is totally crazy. This is not for real. And it's addictive.
Yeah.
um the temptation to focus on the news or the conspiracy theories, all of that stuff, because there are so many layers of information at work here, and it's very exciting and very dramatic. And from my perspective, it's also really toxic to get caught up too much in all of that stuff. Now, it really is important for us to find our center and hold to that, because we're not going to know what the truth of this unfolding is. Who's done what to who said what to who, where this originated, why. Some of that might come out in the wash, but it's probably not the most important thing at the moment from my perspective. The most important thing is to hold steady and to anchor yourself really deep in the core of the earth and high in the heavens, because there are the most extraordinary energies flowing to us, through us, for us, in us, as us now. And if you've got your eye focused on conspiracy and news stories, you're going to miss the major game in town, which is the unfolding energies of creation. So it is, from that perspective, really, really exciting. And it can also be shocking and unpleasant too, if if you're feeling physically vulnerable and you've got loved ones who are in that situation too. Well, it's a tough challenge, but again, we have been warned all along, you have to let go of everybody to their own path, and trust that each one of us will find their perfect place of resonance now, because this really is a sorting time, I think,
Yeah.
and the sorting happens at that energetic frequency level.
Yeah. I agree with that. You said a lot, and yeah, we always seem to have a very fluid conversation. I got to say, Serena put up a note. I'm not trying to point her out or anything. She put up a note in the Zoom room and said, "Stop touching your face," basically. But I put up a post this morning, a couple of posts, just as I was just getting ready for my day, and one of them was, "Bring on the fear, bring on the viruses, bring on the Illuminati, the 1%, the cabals, bring it all on. Let's see what we're made of."
Yeah.
This is to your point, this is being presented like everything in our lives, which typically we see as an individual experience, but this time that we're in is a collective experience where we're all kind of going through the same thing. Call it the event, call it the flash, whatever it is. Everybody's getting it at the same time. Everybody's been isolated. Everybody's been minimized. Everybody's been pulled off behavioral patterns and habits. Think about the energetic reality of all of these things, and what it's supporting is what you started this program out with, which was, be that illumination, be that emanation, be that true self in all of its multidimensionality, all of its higher self and human aspect. And that, I think, one of the things that I'm noticing is that people that have been out there like you, and some of the conversations we've had here have been in regard to, maybe we don't need to do anything. Like it's not even the words. I'm not saying that the words don't help. What I'm saying is that the inner work, the work that we do on ourselves, the personal alignment that we can achieve and refine and increase and expand with, is actually the best thing we can do for ourselves and anybody else.
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's frequency based rather than activity based. And we get to see that now when we are as you say, a lot of us are in lockdown, told not to leave your houses apart from, for an hour a day of exercise or whatever. Well, it is perfect time to turn within. And yet, if you don't have a practice already set up for that, it can send you mad. This sort of being confronted with yourself at a time where the whole world is awash with massive amounts of fear and tension and anxiety and all of this sort of stuff. So it really is about not avoiding yourself and what's coming up in you, because there might well be fear, there might well be, um, all of your patterns rising to the surface as you've got plenty of time to be quiet and feel into them. So it's really to give space to all of that stuff and recognize that these are sort of surface deep, and there's much more depth of riches waiting to come into consciousness if we give space to it. And at that level, we start to build these. I mean, we've been doing it for a long time, but there's a real amplification going on now in terms of the grids in the earth. And I've been doing my online energy work with individuals and watching what's happening. And something interesting that's happened a couple of times now in the past week is that people have dismantled in their field the whole construct of Egypt, which has been a big template for us, a big wisdom template as a collective. And now it seems that we're dismantling that because that's no longer big enough. And we're going through, if you like, this is how it shows up for me in the energy work. We go through the back of the Egyptian construct, and we're now entering into those much bigger fields of the history we have no record of.
Yeah.
So this is what we're starting to draw on now, and that to me is very exciting, because it's the unknown. We don't have a record for that, but our systems have a record for it. We just won't have much consciousness about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff coming up. I know I went through a lot in the last 10 days. I was laid up for about 3 days. If I look back at the last 10, 12 days, if I look back to the equinox, which would be what, 3 weeks? I can say Morgan and I had our most incredible expansions we've ever had. We had 2 particular events occur, at least that I can remember right now, that were one particular being off the charts, being in a space of oneness, that we were, projected into the cosmos, in the physical and non-physical, integrating as one. The higher selves and the human selves integrating as one. In that same time period, and we've had incredible intel come in, direct guidance, but we've all, and then we've had, she had 2 or 3 days of processing in the body, a lot of discomfort, seemed very collective, which later was affirmed to her, to us. Same thing happened to me. I'm just 2 days out of it. I went through 3 or 4 days of just massive DNA transformation, cellular memory, the whole journey of the man, all kinds of stuff going on. So there's been this wide myriad of the spectrum presenting itself in so many different ways to all the different bodies. I think that's been a big standout. And I know that's not just unique to me or to her, to us. One of the things that I did, and you're part of my inspiration, this is a true story, and I think this goes back about 2, 3 weeks, right before the equinox. I was in this space doing a bunch of shows. I've been doing them for several weeks, really blowing out a lot of work. I was a little bit fatigued. I wasn't quite conscious of that at that moment. And I turned on a video, and I was watching a video that had to do with what was occurring. And I could feel the energy of the frequency of the fear or of the virus or whatever you want to call it enter my body. And I went, oh, wait a minute. Am I, you go into that whole thing, am I imagining this? Is it really? But I immediately went to work, and I was very aware that at a minimum, the potential was there, that anything can be transferred transposed, whatever, through the energetic fields. So I thought about people like you that have been on the show, that if you took the microcosm of their experience where they worked with what seemed to be a threat, what seemed to be an illness, what seemed to be a trauma, and they worked with it and they transmuted it through the pure love that they are, and accepted it and surrendered and all of that stuff that you talked about on previous shows and others have, um, phenomenal. To understand that we actually can work with any energy that's presented to us, no matter how it's been presented to us in terms of, oh, it's a threat, oh, it's dark, oh, this or that, and you're living proof of it. So I just want to say thank you for showing me a little bit of that, and to everybody else, this works.
Yeah, it
It's
really does. It really does. You know, I think a couple of weeks ago I had an experience of the virus. I came, and I all along since this has kicked off, I've been saying, oh, I think the best thing is to do is to get the virus, move it through your system, and come out the other side, and then you'll have some
yeah,
sort of immunity. Because I do believe there is a virus. It may well have been an engineered virus. Who knows? But I think a lot of people saying there is no virus. I think there is a virus. Anyway, I was ill. Started off with shivers and chills. The next day, I woke up and felt like I had flu. I ached all over, and that went on for 2 days. And in that time, again, I did what I normally do, which is surrender to the process and really go in, connect with the energies at work, dialogue with them. Now, I had a high temperature for a couple of days, and there's always something really beautiful and really useful in having a high temperature because it loosens a lot of stuff in the body. It
yeah,
opens up the fabric of the body and helps, it's literally the body burning stuff out. If you work with it, I think my experience is you get a much smoother ride. If you're resistant to it and frightened of it, it's gonna it's going to have more to work with or more to work through in your system. So it's going to take longer and perhaps um, be perhaps a little more damaging or a little more
yeah,
difficult to cope with. Work with it rather than against it, and it will transform you.
yeah,
And I think that's always the case with these opportunities then. If we dive on in and give ourselves to the process, it can become a beautiful experience of transformation and one that leaves you feeling stronger on the other side rather
yeah,
than weaker and debilitated. But now I'm seeing so many people walking along the streets, but practically crossing to the other side of the road if they see somebody coming towards them, masks on, gloves on, and it's like,
yeah,
really, the level of fear in the atmosphere is massive, um,
yeah.
and
And it's a I put up one uh, 4 or 5 days ago. As I was just moved to, as I was connected, I put about like two or three of them memes, and one of them was, we be a responsible programmer. I mean, we are co-creators. This whole purpose of all this is for the awareness and expansion of creation itself through the vehicles that we are, through
yeah,
the
yeah,
aspects, the fractals, whatever you want to call it. So it's one, to me, part of the responsibility that comes with who we are, what we are, and what we're a part of is to be to be responsible for yourself, because if that pretty much takes care of everything. Part of being responsible for yourself is what are you putting out there? You know, if you want to be in fear, okay, and that's probably healthy. Get to know the fear, like you've demonstrated in your life, and make peace with it and love it, and beyond words. But be careful what we put out there, because everything has an energetic force.
yeah,
And yes, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. Uh, but I can tell you, and I know I'm not alone here. I can't even tell you 30, 40, 50 videos sent to me on my message in my instant messenger and my email of videos of fear. Look what's happening here. Look what's happening there. And like you said, we may never know who did what, and this is just one event.
Yeah.
We could say
Yeah.
we could say the same thing about the whole collective experience going back 10,000, 15,000 years. I
Totally.
personally don't think there's anyone on the face of the earth that knows what the hell's going on.
No.
They don't.
No.
They don't have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers, but we all have the answers. And
That's
that
it.
comes, and that's what we're being driven to. We're being driven to cultivating and nurturing and expanding and empowering that relationship between ourselves and whatever you want to call it, God, source, goddess, multidimensional aspects, higher self.
Yeah. Because guidance will speak to each one of us individually in every second of every day. It's
Yeah.
probably not going to tell you to go and spend the next 4 hours trawling the internet looking for conspiracy theories. It's probably going to tell you very simple steps for the next few hours on how to best take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And it is really, really simple stuff. Get outside, be in nature, breathe, eat well, get a bit of exercise, the simple stuff. And we're being returned to basics now, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What is being made very clear to me is that it's really, really important to focus on what it is you want in your life, not
Yeah.
what you don't want. And that's always been the case, but now it's really, really important because so many of the veils of separation have been lifted now without us even noticing because our eye is focused on other things. So our capacity to create is stronger than ever. And if we get harnessed as a collective into a very fearful scenario, then what do you think we're going to create?
Yeah.
So we can very easily be manipulated. So it becomes more and more important to really get clear on what it is you want and spend time focusing on that, creating that, taking the next simple steps to manifest that, writing about it, journaling, all of that sort of stuff, the basic stuff, but really to get clear on what it is you want. And sometimes it's difficult to recognize what that is. And like you say, if you're frightened, be frightened. It's okay to feel those emotions as long as it's authentic. And I think a lot of people now are pretending to be totally okay with what's going on, but they're projecting a lot of unconscious fear out into the collective, where it is just fair game for anybody to pick up that energy and run with it.
Well, this is important too because we've moved out of this teacher-student thing. We've talked about this. We've talked about this on the shows we've done and other shows on this network. But yes, I mean, we had a lady on yesterday who's been doing this for 18 years, and she's connected every day, and she writes every day, and she doesn't publish her stuff either. But she was just talking about, her journey, and she said 80% of the time I'm in doubt. Now, this, in my opinion, was a very much aligned individual, expanding soul, has a good grip, humility, grace, power, but very anchoring everything in to her human aspect and being that human aspect, being that divine human aspect, which with that comes what you're talking about. Part of being authentic, I think, and real is saying, hey, I will get up every morning. I wrote it today in a post, fearless, free soul. But that doesn't mean that I don't have my doubts throughout the day. That doesn't mean that when I was laid up for 3 days, and then you're sitting here describing the same symptoms I had, except I didn't have a high fever. I kept getting chills and aches and very flu-like. And yes, I was hearing, as I was asking questions, what was happening to me over this 3-day period. But there was a part of me that said, I wonder if I've got this. And then I went through the motions that I described at the top of the show that I learned from you and other people, which was to accept it, to love it, every single part of it. Ingrid Esme Farrar comes on here. She battled cancer 3 times. She said, I loved my cancer. I loved my chemotherapy. And her story speaks for itself, just like yours. I don't think that there's, a vast, extreme myriad of modalities and processes. I know there is on the surface, but I think when you get right down to the basics, It really is about being that true, pure consciousness, that pure love that we all are, and seeing everything else as that. And that's one of the other things that I noticed is that there is in the hidden fear of people, including me, saying, hey, so and so is right. This movement is right. This is wrong. You know, that's separation. And separation, no matter how much you think you're representing the light, and that separation really only matters to you because you're the one who is generating the collective experience. And we all have an even hand in that.
Yeah. I go back to what I was saying about, you know, really being clear on what it is you want. And if what you want is polarization, then focus on the conspiracy theories and all of that stuff, because you'll end up literally tearing yourself in two, because there is no clear truth on that. But
Yeah.
you will find all of the evidence you want to support your perspective, to support your point of view.
Yeah.
And then you end up hating them over there because it's their fault, and us over here are right. And of course, this is just the biggest heap of bullshit that we have known
Yeah.
is bullshit all along, because this is, well, the human energy field is, and I've said this before, I think with you, it's a polarity collapsing device.
Yeah.
So when we create the space in it to allow those different points of view, those different perspectives to come to rest, to meet in a space of love, and it's very possible, then it all tends to fall apart and dissolve into oneness. And
Yeah.
that's our job. It's just difficult because we are human as well as divine. And if we
Yeah.
were, you know, from that divine perspective, it's very, very simple. But from the human perspective, it's extraordinarily messy and complicated and crazy making,
Yeah. You know,
particularly at a time like this. So.
yeah, you know, and it used to, and I had to take ownership of it, but it used to really bother me when people would say, well, I'm only human, you know, and as an excuse, as an outlet. And I thought, oh, well, you know, once I learned enough hanging around Morgan, and this is true. I mean, once I learned enough to know that it's not them, it's me. Why do I have a problem with it? I need to work on something. You know what I mean? But I've gained an appreciation for that statement, not as a safety valve or a way out or you know, a way to ignore. But yes, this is the experience. We're human for a reason, but the human part, the power of the human part, is the conscious awareness and conscious implementation and you know, activation, actualization of what we truly are in the ethers, you know, what we get from the non-physical, and those feelings that we have. If you are in fear, be in fear. If you're angry, be in anger. Feel it. But it's
Yeah.
not the part that's not I'm only human to me is uh, I'm going to be controlled. I'm going to be a victim to this. I'm going to be disempowered by this. That's the part that is the illusion, and that's the part that we're letting go of. And I just say one last thing too. We've had a lot of people on this show who have connection in their own way and are able to channel or download or receive. We are giants in the multiverses. We are doing something that is extraordinary, and part of the awareness, I think, is coming to the real reality of that we are these giants, that we're actually holding ground in at a higher self level and a human self level at the same time. We're walking in two worlds, and this is some kind of opportunity that I just personally don't feel has ever really occurred to this extent, because this is a thick, dense environment.
Yeah, and I think the same as you. I don't know that we've had this opportunity, this experience before. It is amazingly rich, and it's something, you know. So a lot of our governments are now assuming more control in order to keep us safe. They tell
Mm-hmm.
us,
Mm-hmm.
and it's easy to move into fear around that. You know, will they ever give up the control? What do I do about it? I'm not suggesting people break the rules or put themselves in danger or anything like that, but you don't have to obey the controls at an internal level.
No.
So these energies of control, they are actual structures that start to impact our environment. You can get quiet, meditate, and invite those structures of control that are being extended from governments now. And again, you can invite them into your field and then hold your field in such a way that it allows those structures of control to dissolve and collapse. And watch whether you're allowing yourself to be contained by those structures of control, or whether you can simply expand through all of the structures and contain them. And it's a really simple energetic technique, but it's amazing how powerful and important it is to notice whether you're making yourself energetically smaller to be contained, or
Yeah.
whether you simply expand yourself to contain those structures that are trying to control you. It's a really, really important, simple little technique, that one, but it
Yeah.
makes a world of difference.
Yeah, it does. And I know it's a leap. You know, it is a leap. You're right. It's a leap for us to really understand and embody these truths. And these have been spoken about for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Go within, uh, physician, heal thyself. I mean, all of these things. But the fact is, as within, without. And at some point, whatever it takes, that's why I wrote the post this morning, like, whatever it takes, bring it on. I mean, this is not, we've spent our lifetimes, plural, being afraid of pain and suffering. And they've actually been, and you're a prime example, they've actually been the catalyst for our expansion and newfound awareness of our alchemic abilities. I call them healing abilities, further alignment, creating new templates and blueprints. We are the living new good book. Our descendants, or maybe our future aspects, are going to pick up the ball from where we leave off. And I don't think that there has been, again, I don't think, certainly anyone. I'm 58 years old, so that means at 58 years old, I've been exposed to grandparents, parents, whatever, great grandparents that have told stories or left impressions or read history books. So you get kind of a feel for all the frequencies of the human journey, but the opportunity that exists now is coming to a head, and it's going to be put before us. And I think the biggest fear that we are going to overcome is the fear of our own power.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we've got to allow this to emerge from within, and that involves, or it might well involve, pissing people off, and it might well involve breaking rules and stepping outside of the boundaries. A lot of that stuff can be done energetically, but at some point we're going to have to stand up and be counted, in a sense.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make it clear where your loyalties lie energetically.
Yeah.
Because it's been shown to me for years now that years ago I woke up with this phrase in my mind: we are now in the winnowing time. And I didn't even know what that word meant, or I thought I didn't. I had to jump out of bed and go look at the dictionary. And the winnowing is that sorting of the wheat from the chaff. So it's weird, in these past few months, we've had fires and floods and locusts and plagues. Now we've got plagues. And I'm not, a biblical scholar. I'm not a Christian or anything like that. But this is sort of an end times. It's the end. I really do believe it's the end of the world as we know it. Nothing is going to be the same from here on in. And we've got to accept that. And that can involve a period of mourning and grief for what has been and the uncertainty about what's coming. We don't know. But it is, and another thing I think is important here, is to look deep inside and ask your system, what are the expectations, the unconscious expectations you're holding about how this is going to play out? And your system will show you what your expecting, whether you're holding disaster scenarios and all of that sort of stuff. And then you can bring those up to the surface too, and just give them space. And you'll find that they collapse too, because I don't think anything is settled here. It really is blowing in the wind, and it's up to us to make the difference. It might be that we really do get to choose at an individual level the reality we're going to create. And that there is some huge separation of worlds that's going to take place. This was shown to me over and over again years ago, and I still don't understand how that might be. But it's happening at an energetic and dimensional level now. Whether it unfolds physically, I don't know.
Well, you're one of many people that have made that comment on here. Well, and not just here, but I mean out in the community. The separation of the wheat and the chaff, and the possibility. And again, we don't know. It could be something. We've had people come on here and say, "I've seen two Earths." We don't know how literal this stuff is. We know energetically what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I saw that too, that thing of the Earth splitting into two. And it's like, so how would that manifest? I mean, it sounds completely crazy. I have no idea. But energetically, it has been shown to me that dimensionally that is happening.
That's right
now.
Who knows? I mean, it could be that there are 8 billion
different versions, huh?
Yeah, I mean, there's 8 billion people. It could be tomorrow morning, Morgan and I wake up, we walk outside, there's magenta pink skies with a purple moon and a rainbow sun. But there's a Morgan and Todd that are still in this realm. I mean, who knows how this thing works? But I see that no matter how it works, it is all energy, and the energy that we have, that we're conscious of, because we were unconscious creators. Now we're being given the opportunity to be conscious creators. And so that is something that we can say, this is a common denominator. We can all relate to this, no matter how light workerish we think we are, or how humanish we think we are. There's something about this experience that we have in common. We've all been faced with fears, shadows, the whole 9 yards. We've all been through all this stuff. We've all blamed people. We've all been victims. We've all been, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, this is a quantum environment, and whatever we send out as a result of what we see and experience and observe and feel and all that, what we send out is the heaven or the hell frequency, basically. And to be a responsible creator, responsible programmer, to me, is to just simply mature, and I'm not saying I got it. I'm just saying to be mature in moment to moment, because it does come down to the moment.
Yeah, totally. And to be flexible moment to moment. I was out today earlier on, and I was pissed off about something. My neighbors, actually.
Yeah.
Within seconds, my pissed offness had manifested in an almost argument with another driver. And I thought, again, we have to be really careful about the energy we're projecting, because the world is becoming crazier and crazier by the minute here. And you can get yourself tangled up, and it's probably much, much more intense in the States, where people have so many guns. We don't have guns over here. So things can kick off in a very different way. So you have to keep yourself or keep your energy clean, in a sense, which doesn't mean spotless, you've got nothing going on. It just means that you're conscious about what's going on, and you take responsibility for that, so that you don't just project it outwards for somebody else to pick up and throw back in your face.
Yeah. And you're right. And a lot of people have acknowledged this. The manifestation is occurring amazingly fast.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you hear about it, it's, oh my God, I just had instant manifestation. I had a miracle happen. It was awesome. But the ones we're overlooking, I think, are, the one we might want to be a little bit more aware of are the ones that we're promoting in somewhat unconscious or old pattern, kind of like what you're describing. I've had that happen to me. I've had it happen to me, and it comes like that.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you're getting like a little bit of a nudge going, hey, watch it, because
Yeah.
we can come back
Totally.
real fast. But
Yeah.
I think that to me, this has been a very humbling experience when I get right down to it. Like things that I thought I knew, I had to say, I don't know. And I don't. So I go back to I drill it down and go, okay, nobody really knows. We could be worm dirt. We could be worm dirt. We could pass, and there is no soul or spirit. I mean, who knows? And we would these things that we're all receiving could be some higher thing playing with us. But there's something in all of us that just knows, and that something tells me, those words in the sacred text, made in the image, as within without. We're creating this, and it's not a cliche. We're beyond the cliche now. We're beyond the new ageism of it. We actually can do this, and we don't have to physically transfer to do it. We can actually create, as we do in our dreams, in this physical reality. And the minute this starts, I think it's going to just explode, you know, absolutely explode. And I don't think it's going to take a vast majority, but a very powerful minority.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. When I was asked the other day, what is it you want to create? What is it you want to experience? I had to sit and think, because there were lots of layers about what I wanted to experience. I've got a relatively new home. I would like to see this place sorted out. It's a bit of a mess at the moment. So that was a surface thing. Dropping underneath that, there were other layers. Dropping underneath, there were other layers. When it came down to it, as I got deeper and deeper, what I wanted was to be a pillar of light. And that sort of took me by surprise. But as I felt into it, that pillar is already there. And I think it's already there in all of us. This
Yeah.
really strong foundational pillar upon which we incarnate. I think a lot of us came here to be this foundational pillar of light for the birth of the new world. And that pillar is anchored deep into the core of the earth, high up into our point of origin as a soul. And we download these frequencies of the new earth through that and through us into these realms. That's our role. It isn't about writing a best-selling book or being an amazing dancer. I mean, all of that is lovely, but it is more the frequencies we are allowing to flow through us and how available we are to those every second of every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really dull. It's really boring in a sense.
Yeah.
But when you touch into that, it's
Yeah.
actually totally exquisite. When you're in that space, you know without a shadow of a doubt, it's like, oh, this is what I was born to do. And this is more important than I can possibly imagine from this limited human perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it boils down to, I really, watching all this stuff, and I won't go into all the little things that have happened, but death, death, and death beyond just the death of the physical body, right? But there's so many deaths here. There's so
Mm,
many.
mm,
There's so and so like you have these, like you were saying, the biggest revelations and epiphanies actually come at the very human aspect level. So we have these connections. You have yours, very powerful. People have their own twist on them. The channel and they light language and this and all this stuff, and it's a very powerful thing. People have experiences where they wake up and they go into a Buddha state. My wife had that happen to her. The lady that we had on yesterday, Lori Payne, had that happen to her. Many other people have talked about that. They also talk about how they've spent that time since it occurred and went away to get back to it. But in this human experience, in the trenches, when we think about death or it's put before us, usually when somebody passes, but in these cases like today where there's seemingly this threat of your own mortality, that's a place where you can really find peace,
mm.
where you can say, and you've been there and you explained it so well. You accepted it. I don't know, understood it. You absorbed it. You
Yeah.
you you didn't separate yourself from it. and somehow or another, it triggered transformation. A
And
resurrection.
it allows peace to emerge from a place of, for most of us, there's deep anxiety around that issue, whether it's our own death or the death of loved ones. But as soon as you really dive into that space and are confronted with it, and a lot of us are being confronted with that now, the death of our way of life,
Yeah.
and perhaps the death of people we know or whatever, um, well, you just get to face the unalterable fact that we don't die.
Yeah.
The body does, but there's this extraordinary liberation. And it was always explained to me um, that I was here to do for a particular piece of work, and that when that piece of work is done, we're out of here because there are much more interesting places in the universe to explore. Now, that's how it was explained to me. So every time I've come close to or confronted death, there's always been this point of, oh, I want to stay here, but also this excitement about what I'll be moving into. And that's an interesting creative point to experience on the inside, just this potential for what is coming when we move into those other dimensions. And I think that's true for us all, you know.
I do too. And my gut feeling is that there's an opportunity, and I totally relate to what you're saying. And I remember having this conversation with Morgan a few months ago and saying, why don't we do, I was basically saying, why don't we do this when we're done here? You know? And she said, well, why don't we do it in so many words? These weren't exact words. Why don't we do it here? Like, and it really penetrated my soul, because I thought, wait a minute, heaven on earth, or however you want to be in nirvana, however you want to connotate it. I mean, is this our opportunity? And plenty of us have had dimensional experience where physicality and non-physicality merge, apparitions, visitations, all kinds of different stuff, paranormal stuff. So is this our opportunity? Is this the game? Is the game to like flip the table and actually be the magician and be the alchemist, and be the fairy tale, I mean, this is extraordinary. I don't think that there's any limit to what we can do, and I think we are very, very close to a strong minority tipping this thing over, and actually, because what does a human want? The human wants proof, right?
Yeah.
If you're a magician, show me how you do the trick. And I think we're about to see that. I think we're
Yeah.
about to see that kind of thing.
And for each of us to show up to that point, you have to, it's like the tight fears we hold create a structure in the field. And once you dissolve those fears, then the field opens up into its own inner universe, in a sense, and you become that space of transformation, because you're not limited then by the fears. So you literally are the field of transformation in which magic happens.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't matter dead or alive, it's all the same, in
Yeah,
effect. This dimension,
exactly.
the next dimension, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. There's a question here for you. I think this would be something for you from my friend Janie Hodges. She says, with all these frequencies, is there anything I can do to help adjust and not get stuck energy, because it's coming down like rain and my body's kind of sore? I use meditation, baths, and everything I know of, but this is a lot for my body to handle. Do you have any suggestions?
I remember, when this was first kicking off and walking, every time I would walk out, I would be a bit unconscious and I would hit a wall of fear and then feel awkward, uncomfortable, a bit achy, whatever. And then I have to remember what I am, and that there is an energetic boundary, in effect, that I can make stronger. And it's not about protection, but it's about recognizing what is me and what isn't me, and what I want to take on board. There's often I think, usually resonance with what we might be picking up from the collective. If we're not holding a lot of that ourselves, we don't have to deal with it in the same way. So you always have to check on the inside as to what you're holding, because it's easy to say, oh, it's the collective stuff, and avoid the fact that it might be some of your own. You've got to do the inner work to clear yourself, and then you'll find it easier to be out and about, or to release whatever collective patterning you might be picking up. But it's important at the moment to practice, I think, energetic hygiene, energetic maintenance on a regular basis, because it's very easy to get swamped with the energies of the collective. There's a meditation on my YouTube channel and on my Facebook page, which is about anchoring high frequency energy in your body, in your world, in your life. You can do that. It's very simple, but it's very, very powerful. And it's what I was talking about earlier on. It's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
And all of this stuff might be a massive distraction from this pivotal point in our evolution. You know, there's this huge distraction into the outside world, when the real gems, from my perspective, are unfolding in the inner planes. And one of the most beautiful and the fundamental things are to focus into the core of the earth, because the earth is just rippling new energies out every second of every day. And those can fund your, well, I guess, our wildest dreams, but you have to anchor into them. Another really extraordinary place to anchor into is the crystalline fields in the earth, because these two are very, very active at the moment and are alive with consciousness. And I think this is something else we're coming back into, is a different relationship with crystals. We've sort of tinkered around the edges of the potential of crystals, but there's so much more that we haven't realized, which is anchored back in our prehistory, you know, back in Atlantis. We don't even have that from Egypt. And then the other one, of course, is the sun. What's emerging from the sun now, the frequencies, the codes, are extraordinary. And it's lovely because the pollution levels around the planet are dropping, so that's becoming even more available. So those are simple things to use the energy of the earth, the energy of the sun, to cleanse and balance your own field on a regular basis. And that will do more than just balance your own field. It will actually flood you with potentials and possibilities and new worlds birthing on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously, number one, obviously, for somebody that's stepping into this, you know, kind of new, um, there's plenty. I mean, we've got the internet, so you know, you could type in, "How do I connect to the core of the earth?" You know, "How do I connect to the crystal field?" Um, but I guess at the end of the day, you know, two things come to mind. One, anything I need, I can ask.
Yeah.
Um, how do you do that? You just, you know, find a quiet place and ask, and it will come. The only reason it won't come, and I speak from personal experience, and I'm just giving my own experience, I'm not saying this is gospel, is if the chatter won't allow it to come through, or the doubt, or you know, so that can, anything is only really achieved through trying anyway. So there is no
practice.
failure.
It's just practice, isn't it? But what is great now is because there is such a huge amount of energy flooding the collective field, so that those layers in us that are becoming more clearly defined. So it's not like you have to silence the chatter. I've got chatter going on all the time, but you can just sort of drop underneath the chatter and find different zones of quietness, different zones of energy. So don't attempt to silence the chatter, because you won't get further than that. Just drop underneath it, and it's as if you walk into a room and the chatter is still going on in the room over there, but you're in a different room. It's sort of like that. That's how I experience it.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, that's a good explanation. And then I think, I
It
guess
works for me,
too,
huh?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great explanation. Because if you're trying to silence a chatter, you're in resistance. Which is
Yeah,
probably why I've had some. Yeah, it took me a while to be able to do what you just described that I couldn't have described till you described it. But the other thing I guess that I'm saying too is that I've never been like a traditional meditator, but I have learned that if I want to connect with something, again, I picked up a lot of this from Morgan, an external source seemingly, right? But there's a lot of that out there. So if we're really looking for it, we can find it.
yeah,
And we know we'll be led to it because enough of us have had that experience. But to be able to just say is to pull up the core of the earth, or pull up that crystal field and or pull up the sun if I can't get outside or if it's nighttime and I don't have any time during the day, and actually just basically merge and integrate or speak to these energy complexes or energetic representations.
yeah, yeah. And it's something, it might be useful to use an image. So to pull up an image on the internet of the structure of the earth, and you can see the different layers, the mantle, the crust, and the core, and you just get that in your mind and then focus into the core. It's great to have a visual representation of your internal physical anatomy if you're wanting to communicate with the organs or the bones or the structures in the body, which is a great way to get your multidimensional capacities flowing, is to chat to different parts of your body and talk to them. Use an anatomy and physiology book or pictures on the internet, because it's useful to have a visual representation. It helps us to open to and to access these fields of data, I think.
Yeah, good stuff, man. That's good. That's practical. It's down to earth and it's doable, and it's good for it's good for a layman like me. But that's and then the connection. I never thought about it, but the yeah, because I have learned to speak to my body, and it's getting better every day. And I know this is happening around the world.
Mm.
But what you just said in terms of how do you enhance the relationship with your multidimensional aspects, this is one way to do it by communicating with your body, because I
Yeah.
guess you're using senses above the five senses to
Totally. You're opening all of those doorways, and who knows what you might find when you're in one field of communication. Then your higher self is always operational there. It's
yeah,
just the quiet, vast field that is the backdrop to everything.
yeah,
And you can start to notice that as we get quieter. And this has been said 1,000 times, but this is the lovely opportunity now, is the space and the quietness, that the
yeah,
whole world is in this time of reset. And it's extraordinary.
yeah,
Who would have dreamt that this was going to happen? There are
yeah.
hardly any planes in the skies, not much traffic on the roads.
I know,
Everybody's off work, and it's like, oh my God, this is just completely fucking extraordinary.
right?
What an
I
amazing opportunity.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to go back. You know,
Not
I
to
think
how it was, huh?
no, energetically, even the impact on the kids alone, the children
Yeah, yeah.
being pulled out of school and having a little taste of sovereignty and freedom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even
And
though it looks like
hopefully enjoying this time with their families. That won't be
yeah,
true for everybody, but a lot of
yeah,
kids, this will be a superb time where they're close to their parents for the
yeah,
first time for ages.
yeah,
It can be amazing. But I think for a lot of people, say on 0 hours contracts and stuff, they're going to have this time and they're going to think, fuck no, I can't go back to that life.
no,
They're
no,
going to find their inner creativity emerging, and they'll be wanting to create stuff for themselves rather than work for Amazon or whatever,
yeah, right on.
so it's very exciting, I think.
And since we talked, you did at least two kind of group gatherings, meditations.
Yeah, I
Uh,
do quite a few of those on my through my website, on my platform, and they're sort of teleconference that usually happen over the weekend and
okay,
are themed around a particular theme. The next one is going to be about being very clear about what it is you want and how
yeah,
to access that, dropping through the layers of wanting to find what is your core purpose, in effect,
yeah,
because this is what is really wanting to come to the fore now. So I'm not quite sure when that will be because I'm in the process of creating a new website, and it'll
Cool.
depend on that. But
Very cool.
yeah,
Right on. Well, man, it's always a pleasure. I look forward to doing it again soon.
Hey, likewise, Todd. Likewise.
I know it's always a very fluid conversation. I love the white owl in the back.
Oh, it's cool, isn't it? It's just a resin thing. It's sitting on a piece of amethyst there, a big piece of amethyst. But
yeah.
But yeah, and then there's a big old black cat there as well.
That's powerful. That's powerful and meaningful to me. Both of them. You take care, brother. I love you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Say hello to everybody and be well, be safe. Huh?
All right, David. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.